Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? This is the Class in Session podcast. I am your host, Logan Taylor, with my amazing co host, my partner in crime, my brother, Mr. Dontay Hampton. And we have a very, very special guest for you all. This one here is very different. I'm super excited for who we brought on and her expertise. And so, before we get started, Dontay, can you bring our guest and introduce?
All right, so we have Dr. Parsons. She has a lot. I'm just gonna say that right now. I'm not even gonna say her full bio. I'm just point out some key things. She literally has a curriculum that trains literally resource officers. Like they made basically, she came up with it, and the whole city and county was like, "We want it." So that's the first thing. If that says anything about her, that lets you know right then she's a heavy hitter. She has experience in education field from being classroom teacher, campus administrator, district special educations coordinator. Before that, she was in the criminal justice field, probation officer, sheriff's deputy officer, military police officer, drill instructor. All I get from this is she's very disciplined in what she does, and she means well. She always had a passion for kids, and she always wanted to work with the kids who are considered hard to handle or kids who people really didn't understand. Dr. Parsons, just can you just tell us a little bit more about yourself? I know I left some stuff out of there.
You did a great job. Thank you guys for having me. It's always hard to hear about yourself, but I do have a very different, I guess, kind of resume in the sense that I started in the criminal justice field, and then I went into education, and I've just always been drawn to those challenging kids, whether they were on like the special ed side with an emotional disturbance, or just our kids in the general education that really struggle behaviorally. And that's my passion. And then the additional side of it is the law enforcement side. And I had some experiences with law enforcement officers who truly did not understand kids and disabilities and things like that, and their presence made the situation worse. And so I started working for the Texas School Safety Center, which is here in Texas, and it's like the hub of they work side by side with the government and creating safe and civil schools. And I just started consulting with them, and then the governor wanted a mandatory training for these law enforcement officers, just because headlines, those things become very, in your face when they make bad decisions. And so I created 4 out of the 5 sections that now all of our school-based law enforcement officers here in Texas have to get trained.
Love it. I love it. The part, how you doing?
I'm so good. I'm thrilled to be here and just have the opportunity to talk about what we do, and I don't know,
Absolutely.
I'm kind of giddy, so it's cool.
I love it. 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 Let's talk about this for a second. Why did you get into education?
Well, it's kind of interesting because with my first career in law enforcement, what I kept seeing are these young adults. I was an adult probation officer as well, and I just had all these 18, 19, 20-year-olds that really had somebody grabbed a hold of their heart, they wouldn't have been in the system. And I just kept feeling this tug at my heart that I needed to reach the kids before they got in the system. And I worked at a residential boot camp, and I was a drill sergeant there. And I worked with platoons that were there for 6 months at a time versus a state jail felony, which is a 2-year, in prison. And listening to their stories and getting to know them, and the difference that I was able to make, and it's not me, it's a God thing, but the difference I was able to make in their lives, I just thought, where can we reach them, the masses, before they get in the system? And education was the place. So I just said, I'm done with this career and I'm going into education. And here I am 18 years later.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let me say this now. I want to say thank you for what you do. Thank you for who you are. Thank you for taking the call to help, you know what I'm saying, our babies and our scholars and things of that nature, because I know it's not easy. And so, you know, just right now, I just wanted to give you your flowers because we do that with every educator that comes. We want to give them flowers, know that you don't hear thank you enough and things of that nature. So I just wanted to, you know, of course, say that and say thank you and that we appreciate you. I'm gonna start using that. Don't you crown me now, but I'm gonna start using that because usually we do the little silent clap, but
Yeah, usually we
I'm
do
gonna
the.
start doing that. Yeah, I'm gonna start using the heart. I like that. I like that. Awesome. Um, Dr. Parsons, touch on the four components, right? So touch on the curriculum that you teach for SRO officers.
Okay.
Touch on that. What are the five points? But I want you to also touch on those four components that you wrote with creating the curriculum.
Okay. The first section that we start off with is the adolescent brain. So really learning, one of the things that even our educators don't understand is how the brain works, and where, when kids are in crisis, what part of the brain are they using? And they're using their frontal lobe, but especially teaching our SROs that, the brain doesn't even mature until the mid-20s. So here we are putting, very adult decisions on kids and consequences on kids and expecting that they should have known. But the reality is their brain doesn't even fully develop until mid-20s. So the time span that we have them in education, they're never at their full capacity and abilities. And so the first one is the adolescent brain, and just going through self-esteem, self-concept. We talk about just how trauma impacts the brain, all of those kinds of things. Then we go into mental health, and just mental health, not as a disorder, but mental health and the impacts of mental health on our kids, understanding it, how to recognize when a kid is going through something and what those signs and symptoms are. The next section that we look at is all about de-escalation and those really challenging kids. So what do you do when you're face to face with one of those challenging kids? Because the idea should not be, from a police officer standpoint, when I get involved, I'm taking them away. And that's a mentality that we see a lot. And of course, the kids that they deal with the most have experienced trauma or have experienced skill deficits. They have a crappy home life and parents didn't teach them the skills that they need to be successful, or whatever the case may be. And we also talk about de-escalation and mental health disorders. So I do a section that's on special education, just kind of Cliff Notes version, to help understand some of the disabilities of that they may deal with. So our kids with ADHD, or our kids with an emotional disturbance, or our kids with a conduct disorder. These are the kids that, they're 1% of your campus, but they're 90% of the problems. And there's a reason behind it. So really teaching officers to look at the child and not just the behavior. And then the last one that I did not create, the fifth section, is on restorative practices, and really how do we address kids so that they can right the wrong. I mean, when we look at restorative, that's a huge piece of it. It's recognizing their part in the situation and teaching that responsibility and approaching a kiddo from a different mindset, that how can we fix the issue, repair the wrongs, and move on, and not dwell on mistakes that are made. And those are the 5 sections.
Love that. That's dope. We haven't had anybody to come on and to talk about, you know what I'm saying, writing curriculum or just writing, right? I'm assuming, is this a law now?
It is. It is
So
a
it's like,
law.
is this a mandatory thing for every SOR officer in your district?
Yeah, it's in Texas, across the state.
Oh wow. So yeah, we've never had anybody
Wow.
to bring that on. Dontay, come on, jump in, man. What you got?
First off, I just want to say thank you for coming on our podcast. But like Logan said, this is the first time we had anybody on this side. You know, we had like behavior specialists, but for someone to actually create the actual protocol for officers in the schools is pretty unique, because you're on the flip side of once a kid makes a mistake, and as we know, all kids make mistakes.
Absolutely. So, adults make mistakes.
Of course.
I mean, and the adults expect kids to be perfect. And I'm like, how do you feel when you're tired? Are you as kind? No, we jump down our spouse's throats or whatever. Why is it that we don't allow some grace for these kids? And I'm not saying we don't hold them accountable. I'm not saying that we don't have those tough conversations with them, or that we don't give them consequences, but there's a right way to do that and a wrong way to do that.
And then I also love the adolescent. My granddaddy, when my mom got incarcerated and I was very young, and my granddaddy, he wouldn't like whoop me or nothing like that. His biggest thing was adolescent. So he'd just be like, "You're killing me. Like, you at an adolescent stage. Until you realize your adolescent stage, you're not gonna do nothing." So that's real big. But the question I have for you is, what is some? Can you touch on the special ed as far as the kids who need a little bit more, as far as disabilities and things of that nature? Can you touch on that relationship as far as that? Because I don't think our audience or a lot of people are not familiar with the special needs kids. So can you just touch on that a little bit for us?
Absolutely. Again, those are the kids that I've been drawn to. And when a kiddo has been diagnosed with an emotional disturbance, their reality is different. And the thing about it is that I learned very early on is you can take a kiddo that has an emotional disturbance that can jack your entire school up or destroy a classroom or any of those behaviors, but the absolute best intervention or strategy to work with these kids is building a relationship with them. And as far as really a kid with very challenging behaviors, your number one defense is building a relationship with them. Because when you have a positive connection with a kiddo that is experiencing some differences in reality and in crisis, and using the emotional process of their brain and not the rational process, the relationship is the only thing that I have found that can bring them out of that crisis to start that healing process. And I think that that's just such an easy tool that so many educators fail to use. Build a relationship with the kid and they'll do anything for you. It doesn't matter whether they have a disability or not, but especially those kids with disabilities, the way you treat them and always being respectful and maintaining your own respect. I have 3 guiding principles that I live by. And the first one is, am I meeting the child's needs? So in any interaction that I'm having with them, am I meeting their need? The second one is, am I maintaining the student's respect and dignity and my own? That's huge. And then the third one is, am I maintaining safety and security? And that can look like physical safety, the building, the environment, not letting somebody attack a kid, or it can be emotional safety, trust, things like that. So I think with these kids that are just so misunderstood, and for those educators that just see the behavior, they have to see the child, and they have to build a relationship with that child. And you can get so much done when you actually take the time to do that.
That's good. That's heavy right there. So
heavy.
for our listeners out there, she harped on some as far as building a relationship, which we have heard, but I like the meeting the kids' needs. So if we have any behavior specialists out there, or any disciplinary, as far as AP principals or anybody like that, that was a great point as far as meeting the kids' needs. And also, I liked the trust factor there, basically creating a circle of trust with that kid, because we all know a lot of times schools get a bad rep based on a reaction of a student, when really, if you meet that kid's need and build that relationship, a lot of things can be prevented.
Absolutely.
Get up in here, Logan.
I like that, Dr. Parsons. So I know, being in the education space for 18 years, I know you have the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? What is a common myth? What is a common myth about your job that you're kind of like, I've been in this space for 18 years, and it's like, like, why is this a common myth, right? Like, what is something that you just like, like, we have to dispel that? What's a common myth for your job?
That's a loaded question, but right off the bat, teachers and administrators alike hold very inaccurate notions about discipline that don't serve us well when we're seeking solutions to behavior in our schools. So unless we adequately define the problems, we're not going to be effective in our attempts to solve any issues, challenging issues, discipline, any of those kinds of things. So there's, a few false statements that I continue to hear from educators that perpetuate problems related to student discipline. When I talk to new teachers, they cite this lack of administrative support as the reason for leaving the profession, or changing schools, or going to a new district, or whatever the case. And really what they usually mean is this lack of administrative support in handling student misbehavior. I mean, that's what it typically comes down to. And then on the flip side, when administrators complain to one another about teachers, they usually commiserate about those who struggle with classroom management and discipline. So what's interesting is, seldom do teachers and administrators spend time together addressing or developing campus-wide discipline systems. Ignoring the need for a comprehensive, consistent approach to student behaviors, like sending teachers to deliver their academic programming in a language that they're not familiar with, and then turn off all the lights and make it dark. I mean, it just doesn't, it's setting them up for failure. And so one of the myths that I think is that the student code of conduct is adequate, like, discipline system. Like, we look at the student code of conduct, and it is not a discipline system that fully supports the work of teachers. it supports the work of administrators, okay? Those in the position with the power to assign office level consequences, but one assistant administrator monitoring hundreds of kids' behavior will never be an effective school discipline system. It just doesn't happen. Classroom teachers, as well as other adults who interact with students in the building, they're really the ones that have to be empowered to discipline our students. And this huge shift that I'm seeing is that our teachers aren't empowered to deal with the discipline in their classroom, and they constantly send kids out of the classroom for an administrator to deal with that. A truly effective system enables teachers to manage their classrooms, the hallways, common areas, the school grounds, just, I mean, in short, wherever students are, so that administrators can actually handle the more severe student behaviors that teachers shouldn't have to deal with. But we know that one serious incident can occupy an administrator for half of the day, right? Particularly if like an investigation is needed. But teachers and staff have to be able to handle the bulk of the daily discipline. And I don't see that happening. They have to have the authority to do this, and then have a system that thoroughly backs them in doing it. So there's this myth that teachers can handle discipline and they can handle everything, but they're not equipped to do it. And the systems on our campuses aren't designed to support that. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
So when we think about, there are so many more teachers that need help and support with classroom management and student discipline than teachers that don't need that help. So if a school lacks a coherent system of discipline that all of the adults enforce, it becomes more likely that teachers will experience problems in student behavior. And we're seeing that every day. Behavior issues in our schools are not just occasionally, right? They are daily. Sometimes they are hourly, and they are everywhere in every part of our building. So there's of course always going to be those behaviors that warrant an immediate office referral, and just for an administrator to deal with that. But there's other behaviors like defiance or disruption, disrespect, horseplay, name calling, just all these little things that are usually left for the classroom teacher. It's really the school leaders, so your administrators, it's really their responsibility to ensure that a consistent school-wide system in prevention, that what prevention prevention, what's that mean? But prevent misbehavior, for responding to misbehavior in our classrooms and elsewhere, and removing those chronically disruptive students from the classroom so that our teachers can teach, because teachers cannot meet the academic needs of the kids in a chaotic, dangerous, and unproductive environment. So all that to say, there's this misconception in my mind that A, teachers are equipped to deal with all this stuff, and B, that we have, you magically go to a school and there's a system that exists for dealing with discipline, and there's not, unless we are purposeful in that mission. Most campuses have a haphazardly system in place, and it involves ISS and suspension. And research tells us that does not change behavior. That's kind of a lot. Sorry.
No, that's good. That's really good. That's good. You actually dropped a lot of nuggets. And I hope people didn't miss that. Like, prevention. I think, thinking outside of the box, like we had a episode with an assistant principal. I think she's a elementary school assistant principal, and she was talking about how they are doing a reverse suspension, um, I guess, strategy, or
Mhm.
yeah, they're doing a reverse suspension strategy with not suspending the kids, right? And so they're giving them alternative ways to be
Mhm.
able to, one, be accountable, as well as she said that they do small circles and bring
Mhm.
other students in as a like a peer-to-peer thing to say, hey,
Absolutely.
how can we better handle this? What are some best practices or best ways that, hey, we could handle this moving forward or do something different? So I think putting that prevention piece in there, I think that that's very, very important. Dante, come on, jump in. What you got?
I think what she said about as far as teachers not even learning how to handle classroom
Mhm.
management, I think, or addressing behavior issues as a whole. I think that's pretty big because it's like you want to be a teacher, your job is there to educate, but it's like
Mhm.
if I've never even been taught as far as how to handle or discipline kids, how does that work, what does that look like? And I think that myth is out there that, hey, y'all first responder, you're a teacher, you should be able to handle this. You're this kid's having a bad day, you should be able to do that. And when it's like, well, I'm not necessarily a therapist, I'm just
Right.
I'm an actual educator. I didn't come here for that. So I do think, that gets chopped up in the way of parents, thinking, hey, well, my child has a bad day, you should be able to handle that. When technically I'm not supposed to handle that. I'm really here to teach science.
Right. Like
But
their specialty is the
yeah,
content.
exactly.
I love English writing or math is my thing,
Exactly.
and they're not trained
Yeah.
on. I mean, yes, they should handle minor things in their classroom, and too many things are being sent out of the classroom. But um, getting a 3 hours on cluster management does not teach you what you're about to face and what some of those challenging behaviors really look like, and how to maintain the attention of the other 21 kids when you have this one kid that's destroying the environment. They're just not, they don't get the training that they need, and that makes me sad because there's a lot of great teachers out there that want to be able to handle the things in their classroom and love kids, and um but what I find is so many of them are equally concerned about that one kid, but there's 20 other kids over here. And again, like you said, Dante, that's their job, is to educate all of those kids as well. And when you're dealing with discipline all day long because you don't have a system in place and you're not trained, then those other 20 kids don't get the education that they need. And that weighs very heavy on our teachers' hearts. I know it does. I work with teachers all the time, and I hear that a lot.
Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely. We're gonna put you in a hot seat real quick. And you can answer this however you want to. No wrong answer here. If there is there a value or is there a number that educators should be paid? I mean, like I said, there's no judgment zone, but we do know a lot of teachers are changing careers. A lot of teachers are burnt out. I think everyone around the country is looking for teachers right now. Me and Logan
Absolutely.
looked at a study where I think it was like it's a 65% chance that teachers don't teach after 5 years right now. In the
Oh
past,
yeah.
I think it was over 5 year span, and it went to like 65%.
That's
Um,
crazy.
so if there's a number, like some people say there's not, but is there a number out there that teachers should be paid to where you say, hey, okay, this is the number, we're good
Well,
here, we can move from here?
So I think about the different districts and I look at pay scales all the time. And, you know, we've got districts where teachers are starting at 35,000. That's nothing in today's world. And then you have other districts that, you know, they start at 45. But for me, the importance of a teacher is up there with a doctor. And we certainly don't get paid like that. Okay. But if it weren't for the teachers, we wouldn't have doctors. I mean, you know, and they're making bank, some of them, a lot of them. So, you know, if I had to throw a number out there and just kind of looking at economy and all those things, I don't think that they should get paid less than, and this is of course just kind of general because you put me in the hot seat, but $50,000 to $60,000 like base right off the bat, and then you go with your certifications, and I mean, you just $40,000 to deal with what they're dealing in class. I mean, if I could write it, it'd be like a $60,000 job, and every year you get a 5% raise, you know, so that you're actually getting enough to cover cost of living changes and things like that. But you know, I don't know that there is truly a number. I just know that it's pathetic. Like, it's pathetic. And the fact that we have, you know, the government that's dictating kind of this base salary and stuff, while they're up there, you know, making bukus of bucks and putting mandates on the schools that cost money but don't give them money. So then they have less money to pay the teachers, and it's the teachers who are creating the future of any person holding a job, right? I don't know. Kind of pisses me off what we get paid.
Come on, Logan, come on in here, because Logan gonna make you smile a little bit.
Oh,
all right, so Dr. Parsons. I just wanted to say thank you. That's I appreciate that. Thank you so much. So my number is 80,000.
Oh, I like that. I'll take that. That's good.
I think 80,000 should be the base. That should be the minimum starting out. Like you said, covering the cost of living, you know what I'm saying, other things. So you don't have to get a part-time job. Like if you decide to get a part-time job or to, you know, start a side hustle, it's by choice. It's not you being forced into it, right?
It's not a necessity. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think that, you know, they should start teachers off base at 80K and then go up from there. And, you know, of course, you're going to have teachers like you, for example, that have been in it for 18 years, right? Mm-hmm. So of course, your pay is going to be different. Of course, yes, it's going to be higher as well, but it's going to be a little bit different. So I think starting educators out at 80K, I think that that's feasible. I think that that's a good start. And then I also think that there should be some type of incentive or program, right, to help you all out as well. Like if you're interested in wanting to get your first house or your first car and things of that nature. And Dontay will touch on that because he'll touch on how, you know, he got his first vehicle and everything like that. And so I think starting out there and then having, you know what I'm saying, some incentives and things of that nature so that way, you know, it can balance out. Because I feel like, if we start at 80K, okay, now we can start to get better candidates, right, in the education space.
I will say that if we're going to pay that much, and I'm down for the number, that, and this may get some backlash, and I just call it like I see it. We have to have better accountability for our teachers and what's happening in our classrooms, because I go in and out of classrooms in districts all over Texas, and you have great teachers out there, but you also have teachers that are in it for the summers off and the breaks and are not coming to class with prepared lessons. And, you know, quality instruction and relationships and all of the things that are our ideal teacher, that make an ideal teacher. So I'm all for that. I just think that we have to have accountability. We are a business, whether anyone wants to look at it, education like that or not. And when you look at other businesses and business models, I think that there is a lot we could take from the business world. And I don't know that we really do that. And so, most people in a job that pays that much money, there's high expectations, right? They're earning it. And I think that
Absolutely.
One thing that I've seen, especially since COVID, is really a lack of responsibility and accountability. So I do think that our teachers deserve more, way more than what they get now, whatever that pay scale is in the area that they're at. I think you should add 10 to 20,000 to that, and that's probably a more accurate salary that they should get. But with that, I also feel like we have to make sure that as administrators, whether campus level or district level, that we are truly providing the resources for these teachers to be quality teachers. Because just going through 4 years at school, teacher prep program, that's Cliff Notes version of education. It does not truly prepare you. And so as leaders in school, in education, we have to constantly be working and providing the resources for our teachers to be excellent teachers. And that's training, and that's supplies, and that's time. I mean, TIME, and by doing that and spending that time on them, then I guess what they are then producing are students with higher education and knowledge, and I also think when we really prepare our teachers, you don't have as much discipline issues in your classroom, because there are tons of teaching strategies that help with behavior. But it's a lot. So I'm off all that to say I support 80K. I support a pay raise, period. I just think that we have to hold teachers accountable to be what we expect them to be as well.
Now, I think also with that being said, with that pay raise that Logan said, that comes with I think you'll have a bigger talent pool too. So
totally.
So with that 80K, I think you weed out a lot of those who are just in it for the breaks, or
exactly. And those are the ones that want the training, not the ones that we weed out, but the ones that stay, and it is a meaningful job for them, and they want to be better always. They're lifelong learners, and they want that professional development that's relevant. They want to learn ways to have relationships with kids. You know what I'm saying? And so you're right. Then we're left with the ones that are truly there for the right reasons and are constantly pushing themselves to be better.
But then on the flip side, I just think teachers need the support and basically essentials, like whether that be, I know people get like military discounts, teacher discounts, but I just think you need like flat out automobile. You got to have some kind of plan, financing, pick from these cars, things of that nature. Like Logan was saying, I had when I first graduated college, I couldn't get a car because I didn't have no credit, but I was able to get a car because I was able to go through a graduation plan, and that's how I was able to finance my first car.
That's super cool.
So, like I said, some people, I know a lot of people don't do that, but I think you need that. And then I know you have like first home buyers, all that, but I just think you need some sort of teacher package like ABC to hit the ground running, and I think it'll make a difference on that.
Well, and even going to the 80K, I mean, it doesn't always have to be in the monetary, but why do teachers have to pay $500 a month for insurance when if you didn't have a job, you get better insurance than what you do as a teacher? Like, there are incentives, and, you know, the business world, there's so many perks in other jobs. Like, why are we not doing that for our teachers? I don't understand that, you know. Matching 401ks and better insurance and mental health resources and, you know, your loans, and just, there's so many other things I think that we could do to support teachers, and you know, just shine light on and reward them for what they do.
I love that. I love that. That's actually great. A great point. Second, for what I'm about to ask next. So, what advice would you give to a person that wants to start out in your role that you're in now? What advice would you give to that first year person that's interested or wanting to, you know, go into that role with being a behavior specialist?
Well, I would say that master your classroom management. I mean, you have to. Classroom management is very, very important. You know, be the example. So if you want to be a behavior specialist eventually, you have to have your ducks in a row, because if you know, have a reputation of not handling your own classroom well, how are you going to have the respect to go teach other people how to do that? Right. So having, you know, experience in fair rules and consequences and reward systems, you know, not having, don't try to be the student's friend. They have to respect you first and foremost, like a parent, you know, has to be a parent first. But I think, you know, in telling somebody new that wants to go into behavior, take as many classes as you can to understand people, understand behavior, understand where it comes from, learn what you know, what does the function of behavior mean? How important is structure? What does that do? I think that, you know, we have to, it has to be somebody who generally loves kids. Like, you can't, this is not the position to take if you just want to get out of the classroom. You have to love kids. You have to want what's truly best for kids. You know, curriculum, lesson plans, all tests, all those things are important, but the real difference is made through a personal connection. And if you don't like kids, you're not going to want to have personal connections with them, right? You're not going to put the effort that it takes. And I would say, you know, be the difference that you want to see. And that's just kind of my motto. Be the difference you want to see. Constantly remind yourself why you're in the profession and why specifically you're going into behavior. I have to constantly remind myself, and it keeps me very grounded and reminded of the difference that I'm making. You know, none of us are going to get rich in education, but you are rich in the sense of the kids that you can reach and the influence that you can have as a behavior person. And I am, I mean, that's what keeps me going, is knowing that my relationship with a kid can change the entire trajectory of their life. And that is amazing. You don't even have to be in behavior for that to be true. But when you understand kids and you understand behavior and you are there to meet their needs and help them succeed, and through all of the fits and the throwing things and the FUs, it's all worth it when you know you're making a difference. And so, have your own ducks in a row, practice what you preach, and you'll be able to be successful as a behavior guru.
I love it. I love it. So having a why for what you do, as well as making sure that you do a deep dive into learning about behavior and
Absolutely.
learning about where it comes from, or what are the best practices for trauma informed responses and things of that nature. So I think that that's very, very important. And what you said, Dontay, what's your take on it? What you got?
I think the number one thing that I loved about it, and for people who want to get into education, is make sure you love kids. I think that was pretty cut and dry. So for anybody who's looking to get into education at all, make sure you do love kids and you can be around kids. I know oftentimes it's like, it seems like the cool thing, like, hey, I want to be a role model. Hey, I want to jump in this, but don't forget, you have to love kids, because kids come in all shapes and sizes,
And
different personalities.
They're not always easy to love.
Exactly. So I think that was the biggest thing. We're gonna take a quick break, Logan. What you got for us?
Oh, listen, so I sometimes I'll be forgetting we got to pay the bills. So just real quick, Dr. Parsons, we got to pay the bills, and then we're gonna come back and ask you a few more questions. So
Sounds
listen,
great.
guys, this is the Class in Session podcast. This is the Class in Session podcast, and we are on with Dr. Michelle Parsons. I am your host, Logan Taylor, my phenomenal brother, my partner in crime, Dontay Hampton. And listen, guys, I need you guys to like, subscribe, and comment. All right. I need you to do those three things: like, subscribe, and comment. Yep, that's right, Dr. Parsons. Three things. I need you to like, subscribe, and comment. All right. Leave a comment about the podcast. Give us feedback. Leave a review. Listen, if you love the value that Dr. Parsons is adding, you love the value that we're bringing with the Class in Session podcast, share it with your network. All right. Share it with your network, share it with your community, because overall, what we want to do is we want to add value. That's what we want to do. So, again, I need you all to like, subscribe, and comment. All right. Dontay, let's go.
All right. I guess we got like a few more. So if there is one thing, now this is on the mega scale here. Let's say you're in front of the government, and which you already done created something anyway. So we just put that out there. Let's just say you could change one thing about education, and this is on a large scale, whether it be standardized testing, whatever. If you met with the Department of Education, it was like, hey, Dr. Parsons, you get one thing you can change, but it has to be for the whole country. What would it be?
Funding. It would be funding. Simply put, our students and educators deserve more, period. What teachers and administrators are paid is a joke. We've talked about that. Funds are not equitable. You've got cities that, are rich and they get more money, and our cities that are poor get less money. How much sense does that make? None, absolutely none. It just pisses me off. It is to the detriment of our kids, and that really angers me. Investing in our K through 12 system is not simply an education issue, but it's the foundation of our future, the future of our world. We need more funds so we can teach the whole child. Students are coming to school lacking the ability to make decisions, to cope with disappointment, even interact with others in meaningful and positive ways. The lack of social emotional support in our schools, especially for kids that are battling the effects of trauma, behavioral disorders, and mental health disorders, is becoming more and more noticeable, especially when we see a lot of negative headlines and stuff. But these kids are extremely vulnerable and they need help. We have a crisis in my mind, and we have to face the fact that whole child learning is a priority. I don't care if what your belief systems are. You have to meet the kid where they are today, and we don't have the funding to do that. We don't have the funding to have mental health support and social workers in our schools, or even to provide for our homeless kids. Those budgets are very limited. I work really close with one of the ladies in my office that's her job, is working with our homeless kids and finding resources. The resources should be there. You shouldn't have to go hunt and find them. The government should be providing those resources because these kids need it. And if we're going to educate them academically, we have to look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs before we can look at Bloom's taxonomy. And it takes money, it takes funding, and it's wrong. And if I could change anything, that's what it would be.
Okay. We haven't. That's pretty sharp, Dr. Parsons. We ain't heard the funding one. No, we heard a lot, but we haven't heard funding.
I could go with do away with testing, but here's the thing: if you have the money to meet the needs of the kids, they're going to be fine in testing. I mean, do they suck? Yeah. Do I think they should be so in the spotlight? No, but our kids are going to be fine if we have the money to educate the whole kid.
I like that. I like that angle. I really do. Logan, come on in here, man. That's we ain't heard that.
Yo, the bomb that she just dropped, oh my God, like that. I don't really have too much to say. That's the first time we've heard that. Like a previous episode, we heard respect. Respecting the educators and things of that nature. Another one was, just removing state testing altogether because of how stressful it is. But we haven't heard funding, so that's different. And I think, like you said, if you have the funds, now we can have the proper resources for this child, right? And now, which further helps, like now we're starting to prevent the prison to pipeline thing, right?
Absolutely.
You're starting to help with mental health, right? We're starting to help with, how can we help the teachers? Like, how can they better support? What support do these teachers need so that way they can better support our next generation, right? And then it's like it all goes hand in hand. So I think that's super important, and I love that answer. Like that answer, hands down, one of my favorites. So I love that answer.
Thank you. Thank you.
I love it.
It's truth, man. It's truth.
Absolutely.
And yeah, testing is stressful. It's stressful for the teachers, and it's extremely stressful for our kids. But why is it stressful for our kids? Why do you think it's stressful for our kids? So we drill down, and if you really think about it, it's because they're not equipped to deal with the anxiety that comes with it. They're not confident. Okay. Yep. So I'm going to fail. I'm a failure. They're tired. They're hungry. There's so many other things. Is it really looking at questions and giving an answer? They do that all day long.
Right.
Okay. They do it all day in their classrooms. Mm-hmm. But, we don't give teachers enough time to prepare what they need to do to get these kids prepared for the test. They're working at home. They're exhausted when they come back the next day. Mm-hmm. Time, we got to give them time, and time costs money. when in the education world. And then look at our kids. How can we build resiliency and interpersonal skills and confidence in our kids so they can conquer a test? It's a test, but I mean, they're hurting and their self-esteem is low and they don't have the support from home. And, there's all these other things that if we had the money, we could help them. And tests wouldn't be that big of a deal.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, Dr. Parsons, you in your bag right now. You in your bag right now. I love this. This is, oh man, this is so good. Like the gems and the value that you are offering, that you're giving, and the insight that you're giving is needed. And so it's like, yo, like that's, oh man, listen, I'm over here like, yo, like she really in her bag. Like she's really giving the game. And I just really love that. Right. This will be the last question, because I know we got to get up out of here. But Dontay, I mean, what are some best practices or strategies that have worked for you with doing your curriculum, right? With helping SRO officers, excuse me. What are some best practices and strategies that you can use with dealing with the scholars and things of that nature, right? Because you said early on in our conversation, you said, hey, being an officer, they're like, oh, I'm just gonna just take them away and just lock them up or put them to the side or whatever, and we're just gonna suspend them. Like, what have been some best strategies that you've seen implemented and that you've seen work, so that way you can put that preventative measure or that preventative piece into place?
Great question. I think that it may be kind of weird, but I think that one of the best things we could do is educate our administrators on what the job is for our SROs. My little dog, sorry, but
it's okay.
Because I'll tell you this, there's this other misconception that if there's an issue with a kid and they're being very challenging, that call the SRO. Here's the thing, you guys, they were put into our school systems in the 1960s to bridge the gap between the community and our kids and the cops. They weren't put in there to be disciplinarians, and they're not supposed to be disciplinarians, and they are used for discipline all the time. So best strategies, educate our administrators on what the role is of our SROs, because they're used in the wrong way all the time. Their job is the law enforcement side, and their job is to protect these kids and keep them safe. They should not be on duty. They should not be in their offices watching monitors for safety. They're not security officers. They are there to protect our kids and to know the ins and outs of that campus, so that if there's a breach of the peace or a violation in the law, they can handle that appropriately. But the flip side of that is our officers have to continue to be trained, and they have to be trained in a way to understand kids. And that's probably one of my favorite things to do, is just to teach them and give them the knowledge on, how to work with kids. I tell them all the time when we're out on the street, and I used to be a cop, who is your number one priority as a cop? Street police. It's yourself. Okay. I'm going to make sure I'm safe, that I get home to my family, and by golly, whatever, you're doing, you're going to adjust to me. That's a cop mentality on the streets. When they come into the schools, they have to die to that mentality. And now, who is the priority? It's not them, it's kids.
It's the kids.
It's kids. Yeah. And so you've got to know kids if you're going to protect kids, right? They are there to build relationships with these kids, to show them that, and to change the perception we have about cops, be a resource for the families. And again, I think I mentioned this earlier, when you have a relationship with a kid, they'll do anything for you. Okay. I've seen really good officers that go into our schools, and it's all about relationships, and the discipline on the campus in general decreases. What's that strategy? Relationship building. Number one. And when these officers build relationships with kids, they see the kid different. Okay. And it's about helping them and getting them to the point where they walk across that stage and they graduate. And that, is meaningful. We talk about the influences that we as educators have. Imagine the influence that a cop has on a kid that lives in poverty, that's had their parents incarcerated, that, watches the news and sees all the bad stuff that cops do, but then they actually get to know that cop, right? That school resource officer. And they start to build a relationship with them, and they start to learn how to trust them. How is that going to impact our society as a whole? It's huge. It's huge. So, there's a lot that I could talk about in this field, but our administrators need to be educated on what the role is of the officers, first and foremost. And our officers need not to be put in the position to respond to classroom management, student discipline stuff, because it puts them in a negative light, and they're not disciplinarians. Does that make sense?
That actually makes a lot of sense. You
Okay,
in your bag again. You were in your bag again. I love it. I love it.
Man, I want to help kids, and I want the people that are there to help kids be equipped to help kids, right? We set so many adults up for failure because we don't teach them what they need to know to help kids. And if you're in this business, you got to want to help kids. It's my passion.
I love it. So listen, she just gave y'all the motivation, because I was gonna ask her to give
I was about to say,
to
ain't no motivation. She gave it to you,
but you gave it to you. So listen, man, you got to have a passion, and you got to know your why for what you do, right?
Absolutely.
Because when the motivation runs out, that's when the dedication has to kick in. So listen, guys, Dr. Parsons, man, listen, I cannot thank you enough. I cannot say thank you enough for this opportunity, for coming onto the podcast, for adding so much value. And again, I want to give you your flowers again and say thank you. We appreciate who you are, what you do, and what you bring to the education space. So I just want to let you know that. But how can people get in contact with you? So if anybody's interested, wanting to get into becoming a behavior coordinator, or they're wanting to know about the curriculum that you wrote with TCO 4026, how can they get in contact with you?
Well, first, my website or my email is Behavior Counts ECS, so ECS for Education Consulting Services, but Behavior Counts ECS at yahoo.com. And when I tell you that I am truly a resource for you guys as educators out there, I mean it. If you need, to understand how to create that discipline management system on your campus, if you need a behavior matrix from tier 1 to tier 3, I have it. I've created it. I will give it to you. Why? When I normally would make money off of it, because I don't care. I want to help kids. And if this will help you help kids, I'll give it to you. And I'd love to come back on and talk specifically about some of those strategies and stuff, but email me. My phone number, just don't call really late on the weekends, but here's my cell. I mean, this is serious. And don't stalk me, but it's 817-614-6352. My passion is kids. Whatever I can do to help you find your way, motivate you on your way to help kids, I'm here for you. And I mean, that's just the real deal.
Y'all heard it.
Love you
Yo.
guys. Thank y'all for having me on.
Dr. Parsons, the pleasure is all ours, and thank you for the opportunity. Listen, guys, she said if you want to get in contact with her, she said you can contact her. She said if you want to learn about curriculum, if you want to learn, if you need a behavior metrics, if you need to learn more about tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, she can help you with that. She is the guru for that, and so she is an expert in her field, and so definitely want to reach out to her. But before we get out of here, listen, guys, this is the Class in Session podcast. I am your host, Logan Taylor, my partner in crime, my brother, my amazing co-host, Mr. Dontay Hampton. Dr. Parsons, again, thank you so much. I appreciate who you are, what you do, and the value that you bring to the education space. And guys, listen, man, I need you to like, subscribe, and comment. All right. And in closing, like we always say, why be normal
when you can be extraordinary?
All right, we'll talk to you guys soon. Peace. See you guys. Thank you so much.